The 2025 regular season is officially in the books, which means that half the NFL teams did not make the playoffs and are currently looking towards the draft to figure out how they can improve their roster. So in today's video, I want to give you guys an updated 2-round mock draft for the 2026 NFL Draft. Hit the like and subscribe button if you guys are new. Let's get into it. So as you guys can see, we're on the PFF Mock Draft Simulator, and yes, this is the updated draft order for the 26 draft. With the first overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders will be on the clock, and if they are going to keep this pick, which we all expect them to do so, I expect Fernando Mendoza to be the pick here. Now, I do want to say this about the Raiders. Keep an eye out for a potential Max Crosby trade. If Max Crosby does get traded, the Las Vegas Raiders could find themselves in a position where they might have multiple first-round picks in the 26 and maybe even the 27 draft. Of course, I'm not going to make any trades in this mock draft, but I do want you guys to keep that in the back of your mind, especially if you're a Raiders fan. We're going to take Fernando Mendoza here for the Las Vegas Raiders. As of right now, he would be my #1 quarterback in this draft. I think there's a lot of good qualities to his general game. He can make every throw. I think he is very clutch, moves well in the pocket, has good size, has a ton of experience. He's not the most perfect player. Arm talent is not elite by no means, but I think he is a quality draft pick. Not your typical #1 pick, but for a team that needs a quarterback as badly as Las Vegas, you'll take the pick here. At number 2, we got the New York Jets, and I think they're also going to take a quarterback here. When you look at what happened to end the season with Aaron Glenn, I think there's a ton of pressure for him to get this team turned around ASAP. You have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds of this draft, and you have 3 first-round picks next year. The Jets are set up to have a really quick turnaround, and I think if you are Aaron Glenn, you got to go ahead and secure your quarterback here. In comes Dante Moore, who I like Dante Moore. I do believe he is a first-round talent. In an ideal situation, I think he would be able to sit for a year, but I don't think he'll be able to do so with the Jets. I think he's really calm under pressure. He's got an excellent release. It's so unbelievably fast. An unbelievable deep ball. His real main issues is that he is so young. This is really his first year being a full-time starter besides his freshman season when he was at UCLA. Didn't really work out there. So this is really his first year starting for Oregon, and he's got some inexperience to him. Some underneath stuff's a little bit baffling, some inconsistency things as well. I do think he'll end up being a good quarterback, and I think for the Jets and Aaron Glenn, this buys you a bit of time to, retool this team. Number 3 is the Arizona Cardinals, and with no Mendoza, with no Dante Moore, I don't believe Ty Simpson goes in the top 5. I mean, if Arizona's desperate, they might make the pick here. I don't see it happening. I just don't think Ty Simpson is worth a top 5 pick. He really struggled in the back half of the season. Once that team kind of got figured out in some games, Ty Simpson made some mistakes. Now, that's not to say he was the reason why they lost some of these games. I thought versus Indiana, before he got injured, he was actually making some nice plays out there, but I just don't think he'd be worth a top 3 pick in this draft class. Not to mention, he might just go back to college. Same with Dante Moore, which, Lord have mercy, I hope that doesn't happen for both these teams' sake. But with this pick here, I think I'm just going to go with the overall best player on what I would imagine would be their board, and that is going to probably be Arvell Reese right here. Now, I know you look at their needs and they're all offensive, and trust me, I know they need some other things, but I don't think they need a wide receiver. You have Marv, you have Michael Wilson, who's been great, you have Trey McBride. I could go running back with Jeremiah Love, who is my #1 player in this class. I love Jeremiah Love, but I just don't think the Cardinals would take him here at number 3. I think they'd be better off, spending it here on Arvell Reese to give you an extra pass rusher opposite of Josh Sweat. I know they've kind of addressed defensive line quite a bit, but the versatility of Arvell to play off ball, to play off the edge, I like his fit here for Arizona. Again, if there was a dominant offensive tackle, I would take him here, but there's not a guy here that you're taking top 5 unless you're really reaching. So I'm not going to do that here. I'm also not going to reach on Ty Simpson. I'm just going to take the best overall player in Arvell Reese that I think, I don't want to say finishes off that defense, but kind of gives them a bit of a cherry on top on that defense that should be much better if they can stay healthy. All right, Tennessee's up at number 4. I know the immediate thing that people want to do is start to mock them receivers because they could really use a true #1 guy, but I just don't know if the Tennessee Titans would do that. I also think Jeremiah Love is in play here. I think Ruben Bain is in play. I think David Bailey's in play. I'm a little torn here. I love a lot of these pieces. I think I will go with the receiver though, just because if you are Tennessee, you have such a big investment in your quarterback. You have to make it work. You have Alec Maynard, you have Shamir Dike. Neither one of those guys are true wide receiver 1s. Go get you a difference maker. And if Jordan Tyson's injuries end up being not a big issue, because he's had a number of them, but if they end up being kind of a non-factor in his draft profile, then I think he would be the #1 receiver off the board. I think he's one of the best overall prospects in this draft class. For context, he is my third overall ranked player in this class. I think he's an absolute superstar, so we'll take him here for the Tennessee Titans. Up at number 5 with the Giants, I really love the idea of taking Caleb Downs, but I just don't know if he goes top 5. They don't need pass rushers. I think my automatic lean here would be a Carnell Tate or a corner like a Mansour Delane. That would check out for me. But I think you have such a big investment on your offense. You got to get that thing turned around. You're going to have Malik Neighbors. You're probably going to lose Wandale. We'll see what happens with Darius Slayton. You have Theo Johnson, but you have such a big investment on that offense. I'm going to go with Carnell Tate. I think he'd be a perfect complementary piece to Malik Neighbors. An absolute deep ball, contested catch, reliable target that has been healthy for the most part. Doesn't have a drop in the regular season for Ohio State. I know his game versus Miami left a lot to be desired, but we have enough tape versus Texas, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, Penn State, Michigan, Indiana to know that Carnell Tate is a really good player. So we'll take Carnell Tate here for the New York Giants. All right, 6, we have the Cleveland Browns, and I got to be honest with you, I think the Browns are in a really tough spot right here. If Tyson and Tate were to come off the board, you're really just looking at Mekhi Lemon and Denzel Boston, who I love both those guys. I think Mekhi Lemon can be a true difference maker. Taking him at number 6, though, does feel very, very rich. They have a second first-round pick. This one falls at number 28 as well, so we got to keep that in mind here. I don't hate the idea of Peter Woods. Pairing him up with Mason Graham would be great, but I'm not going to go Peter Woods here. I feel like if I did that, they might get my house torn down. There's not an offensive lineman I would take here. I'm definitely going to wait till 28 to try to look at that. I mean, I think I might just be forced to go with the Mekhi Lemon. Because we're not doing a trade down spot, I would like to trade down. I could hear maybe some Ty Simpson coverage here. Like, that's a possibility. I just feel like, man, you put Ty Simpson on an offense that has a bad offensive line and no legitimate number 1 weapon, I feel like you're setting him up for complete failure. But at the same time, there would be some pressure on what I would assume is going to be a new coaching staff to get that team heading in the right direction with the prime Myles Garrett. I'm not going to do anything here, though. I guess I'll just go with the Mekhi Lemon. He is one of the most surefire prospects of this class. I think his game is unbelievable. Very Amon-Ra, St. Brown-ish. I know it's a pretty easy comp given his size in school, but in terms of what I think his game will translate like in the NFL, it's kind of like that. So if you could find one of those guys, guess you don't overthink it. I don't love the pick here at pick 6, but that's really the only thing I can think of for them. Number 7, we got the Washington Commanders. I know Caleb Downs has been the go-to pick here, and by the way, I love the Caleb Downs pick here for the Washington Commanders. I think he really helps off and really tops off what could be a pretty exciting young secondary for Washington. Trey Amos, Sandra Still, and maybe Caleb Downs. I dig that. But I also believe they have to be able to get after the quarterback a lot better. They're kind of a pass rush by committee right now. They don't really have a go-to guy. Ruben Bain doesn't have the arm length and maybe the profile that what Dan Quinn would go to, but David Bailey kind of does. Obviously, he worked with Micah Parsons, and he had a monstrous season, 15 sacks. I thought he was incredible versus Oregon. I know Texas Tech got their ass kicked, but David Bailey did his job. I think I'm going to go David Bailey here. I'm going to go with David Bailey here to give them a pass rusher off the edge. And by the way, it's a really good safety class, so we can maybe go back towards safety a little bit later and take one of these guys. And I think all 5 of these guys right here could be day 1 or day 2 picks. All right, New Orleans is up at number 8. I would love to address the interior of the offensive line with this pick, especially with how the wide receiver board fell for this team. We'll have to look at doing something with the 2nd round pick here. But with the way the board fell, I really do like the idea of potentially going after an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. And I do think the defensive lineman board's a bit more intriguing here. I love Ruben Bain Jr. He's been incredible this season. Really dominant versus Ohio State. I mean, he kind of just took over in that one. I love him. Look at this. 60 hurries on the season. Just ridiculous numbers. A 23.7 pass rush win rate. I mean, that's unbelievable. And he's a dominant player versus the run. I think he's kind of the build they'd be looking for in terms of the weight he has. They like their bigger edge rushers. So I think this would be a good fit. I know that Keldrick Falk with the arm length and that might be a better, like, what they might go to and gravitate towards, but I think they need a difference maker, and Ruben Bain could be that guy. Yeah, I'm going to go Ruben Bain here. I love Ruben Bain. I think he's maybe the best player in this class. He is my prospect number 6. For a large chunk of the season, though, he has been inside my top 3. So maybe I just have a bit of prospect fatigue with him. He's a great player. I think he should be a top 10 pick. Number 9, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. With the way the board fell here, with the top 2 pass rushers coming, I guess top 3 pass rushers coming off the board here, I don't think they would consider a Keldrick Falk here because he's just not the pass rusher right now. Nor would I imagine they'd really consider Cassius Howell, because you can look for another DPR guy a little bit later down the board. There's a number of those guys in this class. Receivers also a bit of an interesting one. Maybe they would consider a Denzel Boston, a bit of a different body type from what they kind of have already. But with the 40th pick, we might be able to take somebody like a Jacoby Lane or a Chris Bell. So I think I'll skip on that. I think the offensive line is mostly okay. They might need to figure out right tackle, which maybe does put a Spencer Fano in play here because he's probably the perfect fit for this team. But I think when you have 2 premier talents, I guess 3 premier talents with Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, and Peter Woods, I don't think you overthink this one here. The question is, do you want to get Sexton, go with Jeremiah Love? Do you want to take the surefire hit and an upgrade in the safety room, which they're going to need because they have a guy on free agency this year that is probably going to leave, so you could find his replacement right here in Caleb Downs, and Caleb Downs would be great for this team. Or do you maybe just go with the pick in Peter Woods, pair him up with Chris Jones and Omar Norman Lott? I don't hate any of these options, if I'm being honest with you. I think I'm gonna go with I think I lean Peter Woods a little bit here, just because yes, you have Chris Jones, but he's getting up there in age, and then alongside him you have guys like Mike Pennell, Jerry Tillery, Derek Nottie. I don't know if any of those guys are a difference maker, and I don't know if any of those guys really give Chris Jones a true running mate. Again, I know unfortunately, there's no dominant edge I'm taking right here. I think I lean Peter Woods, especially if you do believe in Jaden Hicks and Shamari Connor, and maybe you can draft a safety down the board here. I think I'm gonna go with Peter Woods here. Let's take Peter Woods for the Chiefs. Again, I would have considered Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Love. Those both make, perfect sense. All right, Bengals up here at number 10. I think with the way the board fell here, I'm going to probably just take Caleb Downs. I think he's by far and away the best prospect on the board. He is my number 2 ranked player in this class, just behind Jeremiah Love. I think he's a superstar. Play him wherever you want. Look at how Ohio State used him. 240 deep, 240 in the box, 146 in the slot. You can use him all across your defense. He's the weapon. He is a surefire hit. I'm going to go with the Bengals taking Caleb Downs. By the way, the Chiefs could easily take Caleb Downs here too. I think that would totally check out. All right, number 11, I have the Miami Dolphins, and this might be a Ty Simpson spot. Now, Quinn Ewers hasn't looked bad by no means, so maybe it's not the biggest of needs, but I would like the idea of Ty Simpson here. I think that could be a good fit, especially with all the pressure that is going to be on Mike McDaniel. I also believe, though, you have to start to build around your roster, and with the way this team is shaping up, their secondary is going to be losing a lot of pieces this year, and they could definitely use some upgrades. So I think Mansour Delane is probably my number 1 option here. My number 2 option would maybe be an offensive guard / tackle in Spencer Fano or Francis Mauigoa. But I think I am going to go with Mansour Delane here. I'm going to go and take Mansour Delane to be their CB1, and hopefully they can build around him in that secondary in the future. All right, Dallas is up at number 12. Pretty rough stretch here with Ruben Bain off the board, David Bailey off the board, Downs and Mansour. Those would have been all dream picks for the Dallas Cowboys. So pretty unfortunate stuff there. That all said, and would you consider a Jeremiah Love pick? Oh man, that gives me a headache as a Cowboys fan. I love Javonte. I think he's a superstar. A star. Jeremiah Love, though, man, on that offense. I mean, that offense would be unstoppable. And that is such an irresponsible pick by me, though. I can't do it, but Lord have mercy. My trigger finger is shaking right now to just take Jeremiah Love. I think I'm going to lean Sonny Styles here, who I think is a great player, has great length, good size, really violent hands, gets downhill quickly, a freaky type of athlete for somebody of his size, but man, Jeremiah Love is my number 1 player in this class. Oh, my Lord. You know what, dude? Fuck it. I'm so tempted to go with Jeremiah Love here. Pardon my language. This board is so bad for the Cowboys because we'll see what Jeremiah McCoy looks like at the combine and things like that. He could be the pick here because I believe he was setting himself up to be a nasty 2025 prospect, but he had that major injury. The linebacker class is deep, but the issue with the Cowboys is they don't have a second or a third round pick. So this is kind of all they have. I think they're going to bring back Javonte. It absolutely pains me. I'll take Sonny Styles here. It's just the responsible thing. Sonny Styles and DeMarvin Overshown would be quite nasty. But taking Jeremiah Love would kind of feel like when they took CeeDee Lamb back in, I think it was that 2020 or 21, where they had Coop and Michael Gallup, but they said, oh, you know, F it, let's have 3 of them, and it's worked out great for them. So we'll take Sonny Styles, though. It's probably the more responsible pick. All right, 13, we got the Los Angeles Rams. I usually take a tackle for them, but they have a young tackle playing pretty well right now. So I kind of think we push that need a little bit more down the board here for maybe 29 or 61. With the pick at 13, Ty Simpson's here. Let's go Ty Simpson. Yeah, let's take Ty Simpson here for the Rams. He'd be able to sit behind Matthew Stafford for at least a year. This would be such an ideal spot for him. He would be a really good fit for this offense. We'll take Ty Simpson here for the Los Angeles Rams. All right, Baltimore's up here at number 14. I would imagine that this is probably where you're taking Francis Mauigoa, who's my number 1 offensive lineman in this class. Him and Spencer Fano are really close, though. I'm going to kick Mauigoa into the guard position on that right side to replace Falele. And I think this is he's a big dude, but he is a really, really good athlete. Like a really special type of athlete for somebody of his size. Violent hands, strong anchor. He can be very aggressive. I think he's a perfect fit for what Baltimore wants to do. Very much a ground and pound. Put the ball in Derrick Henry's hands, put the ball in Lamar's hands, and let those guys work. Let's go Francis Mauigoa to kind of finish off that offensive line for Baltimore. All right, 15, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need pass rushers. They need linebackers. They need maybe some offensive line help a little bit. They had a ton of injuries, though, this year, so I'm not going to do that. Although Spencer Fano would be pretty intriguing. I like the idea of really looking at Keldrick Falk here. Now, he's not really the pass rusher they might be looking for, at least not yet. He does have, obviously, some productivity. 9 sacks last year, 2 sacks this year. I thought he got home quite a bit, just didn't finish off the sacks. But I think he's kind of the versatile piece that would fit that system. But at the same time, they're probably going to fire their head coach, so who knows what their system's going to look like. We don't know what their D coordinator is going to be. I'm going to go, though, I think I might, it's between TJ Parker and Keldrick Falk. I think I'll just go Keldrick Falk here because I don't know what their coaching staff's going to be. I think he'd be a great fit for a 3-4 system to, have that versatility to play a little bit as an outside linebacker and at times play inside as a kind of a lighter, more twitched up, edge defender. So let's take Keldrick Falk here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, 16, we got the Jets. We took their quarterback in Dante Moore. Boy, do you take Jeremiah Love here? If you don't re-sign Breece Hall, do you do it? I mean, Jeremiah Love is just falling down the board here, and he is such a difference maker. You want to give your offense an identity with Dante Moore and Jeremiah Love to go along with the good offensive line and Garrett Wilson and Adonai Mitchell and Mason Taylor. I'm really tempted to do it. Now, I do know that they're trying to bring back Breece Hall, so maybe that makes this pick a little bit not much of a need, but I don't hate that idea at all. In fact, I think I might run it, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going to do Jeremiah Love here. Dante Moore, Jeremiah Love. You don't bring back Breece Hall. You allocate that money elsewhere. And you have 2 more second-round picks here to address linebacker and corner. Let's go Jeremiah Love. All right, 17, I got the Detroit Lions. I think this is probably a Spencer Fano pick. I know he plays right tackle, but I think you either move him or Penei Sewell over to play left tackle, and I think that would work out there. They need help on that offensive line. Reestablish the trenches, Detroit. Reestablish. All right, Minnesota's up at 18. They're probably pissed that Jeremiah Love went before them, but I think Jeremiah McCoy's the pick here. I think Jeremiah McCoy is the pick. I like Avion Terrell also for this team, but I think Jeremiah McCoy is just a better prospect if he's 100% healthy. We'll have to wait and see on his health status. All right, 19, we got the Panthers. I think a pass rusher makes a ton of sense here because I just think they have to get better at getting after the quarterback. A linebacker also checks out. CJ Allen, Anthony Hill. Oh, they get my guy Josiah Trotter finally in the system. This guy's an absolute superstar in the making. So yeah, I think I might go with, I like Cassius Howell here quite a bit. Him and Nick Scorton screaming off the edge, the Texas A&M guys. I like the sound of that quite a bit, if I'm being honest with you. Caden McDonald continue to add to the trenches, get stronger up front. But yeah, let's go with Cassius Howell here to give him the dominant pass rusher off the edge. All right, Dallas is back up at 20. We just took Sonny Styles. I'm leaning towards taking an edge rusher here. And while I don't dislike Romello Height, I think he's a good prospect and a really good pass rusher. I think the Dallas Cowboys would gravitate more towards a TJ Parker with his size, his frame, pairing him up with Donovan Ezaraku, I think he'd have a really good run stuffing unit. And I think as a pass rusher, TJ Parker has upside to be a really good one. Had 12 sacks the year prior. This year, a little bit of a step down, but I feel like that whole Clemson team kind of brought him down a little bit. And I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas were to trade up for a day 3 pick to maybe snag on Hakeem Mesidor to give their a bit more depth in that room. I think I'm going to lean TJ Parker here for the Cowboys, though. Let's go TJ. Our Pittsburgh's up at 21. Obviously, no quarterback you're taking right here. I think I'm going to take a receiver here. Let's go with Denzel Boston. I think he's maybe the best receiver, best talent on the board still in this position. Gives you good size, good length. I don't think he's too similar to DK Metcalf. I think there's some similarities you could make, but I think more than anything, he's just a really good player. And we'll see what happens with DK Metcalf this offseason. I think Pittsburgh's probably regretting that move. All right, 22, we got the Chargers. This pick is really simple for me. We're going to take Vega Ione, just a big-ass dude up the middle, strong, physical, violent, aggressive, technically sound for the most part. He would be the perfect Jim Harbaugh type of guy. So, yeah, let's do that. All right, 23, we have the Philadelphia Eagles here. Kenyon Sadiq's in play, especially if they don't bring back Dallas Goedert. I think it's a pretty solid tight end class, though. Like, there's a number of really good players you could take in the top 100, so I don't think that's their biggest of needs. I like the idea of Avion Terrell here. Had a really solid season for Clemson. I like the sound of that. I also like the idea of Romello Height here as well. Give him another pass rusher off the edge. I mean, he's so big and lengthy, but he's just very light. Like, he is very Stretch Armstrong like. That would be his best build, but he runs with a purpose and a violence to him. But again, I think the question will be, was this just a one-year wonder, or is this who you actually are? We'll have to wait and see on that one. I also like the idea of Caden Proctor, kicking him inside to play guard and maybe a long-term tackle if he can develop a little bit. I don't hate the sound of that. Big-ass dude. I mean, that's pretty well documented at this point. But I think I'm going to go corner here. I think I'm going to lean corner. It's a pretty solid class in general, but I will take Avion Terrell here. Just really solid in coverage. I do worry a bit about his size, but having a Cooper DeJean closer to the line of scrimmage, I'm not too worried about it. 24, we got the Buffalo Bills. I think adding to maybe a receiver would be nice. Linebacker, I think CJ Allen would be a dog in this system. I think that's where my mind immediately goes to. In terms of edge, I just feel like you can maybe wait till round 2 with 56 to like take a Gabe Yakis or a Zion Young. I'm not the highest in Anthony Lucas, but you know, maybe you take him or somebody like that. So we'll wait on an edge rusher because I'm sure one will fall to them. And we're going to take CJ Allen, who, man, an absolute just freak of nature when it comes to getting downhill and being a thumper. In coverage, I think he's still a little bit raw, but I think there's an upside for him to be very solid there. I'm going to go with CJ Allen here for the Buffalo Bills. All right, this is a really easy pick. I'm taking Caden McDonald for the Bears. Helps them with their run stuffing unit, and I think he has an upside to be a pretty good pass rusher. He's just the best overall prospect still on the board, in my opinion. 26, we have the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm going to go with Romello Height here. Again, another pass rusher. We just talked about him a little bit earlier. San Francisco, without Nick Bosa, has not been able to get after the quarterback. Nick Bosa is coming off an injury. We'll see what they do in the offseason to address that room, but adding a Romello Height with the Micah Williams and a Nick Bosa makes that pass rushing unit a lot better. All right, Houston's up at 27. The offensive line hasn't been horrendous this year, but I would still like to find some upgrades in this room. I like Caden Proctor at guard. I think he could be a good, fun fit here. I do think he's a risky option, though. And I think that would maybe make me a bit cautious with taking him here at number 27 because he is a bit of a risk. Whereas an Emmanuel Pregnon, I kind of know what I'm going to get, which is a really solid starting guard. So I'm gonna probably play him at left guard and pair him up with Ed Ingram next year. So let's take Emmanuel Pregnon here for the Texans. Fall of Caden Proctor won't be long here, though. We're gonna go ahead and take him here for the Browns, who took Mekhi Lemon first. We'll take Caden Proctor here to play either guard or tackle for this team. He would give them some good flexibility. All right, the Rams are on the clock here. They took their quarterback in Ty Simpson. I think now you maybe look at a corner here, and I like the idea of Colton Hood. Really good player. Brandon Cisse gives him some really good athleticism. Keith Abdi, I love his tape a lot. His technique, he's technically sound, sticky in coverage. I think he's a good player. I'm going to go with Colton Hood here, though. I think he'd be a really good fit for that Rams secondary. All right, the New England Patriots are up here, and I like the idea a little bit of like Anthony Hill. That would make some sense. I think Kenyon Sadiq's in play here. I'm not the highest on Kenyon Sadiq. I hope that my maybe a little bit of bias is not showing here. Maybe an edge rusher. Joshua Josephs would be my next one that I would probably take here. Let's look at the offensive line board really quickly. Ooh, Caleb Lomu. Yeah, let's do Caleb Lomu. He plays left tackle, but I think you can probably stick him over at right tackle and develop him there. We'll see what happens with Morgan Moses. If he's able to stay healthy and then go for next year, then Caleb Lomu can sit behind him for a year. Maybe try it at guard. And yeah, we'll put Caleb Lomu here to be our long-term right tackle, or we can flip Will Campbell depending on which way we want to go. All right, Denver's up at 31. Kenyon Sadiq, it's just kind of automatic. At 32, we have the Seahawks. I feel bad not having Caleb Banks off the board here, but I feel like I don't disagree with most of my picks, so he'll be off the board really quickly in round 2. When it comes to the Seahawks, I think that interior offensive line's got to be a bit of a priority here. Jennings Dunker, I think, is a really good scheme fit for what this team wants to do. So that is kind of my initial lean. I think corner's also a bit of a need here too, just because of Reek Woolen and Josh Joe both being free agents. So you might not want to mess up that secondary and get a bit of a safety blanket because you're probably going to lose at least one of them. So I think I'll take a corner here instead of Jennings Dunker, who I think might be a great pick here for them. But I don't hate the idea of maybe just waiting to take Jake Slaughter to play center / guard, or an Austin Sareveld, although I don't think he's the best fit. So we'll see about that one. I think there's enough decent options at guard to wait on that one. Whereas if I can get kind of a difference-making corner here, I don't. You know what, actually? But at the same time, there's a lot of good depth in this secondary class. Like Malik Muhammad, Jalen Kilgore, Davison Igbinosa. And there's some real talent in this class. Let's take an offensive tackle. Sorry. I just backtracked. Let's go Jennings Dunker here. Let's go Jennings Dunker. All right, we'll make this really quick. Before we get into this, though, if you guys do enjoy NFL draft content, I do have a podcast called First and 10. Make sure you guys check it out. We upload basically every single day on that channel, so check that out. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. We're going to be in the second round. We're going to speed things up. Let's get into it. All right, 33, I have the Jets. They have taken Dante Moore and Jeremiah Love. I absolutely love that. Let's take Caleb Banks here. Really, again, we talked about him a bit earlier around these picks. I think he's a superstar if he can just stay healthy. Arizona's on the clock. They took Arvell Reese here. I don't think there's a quarterback you'd consider here, but I would like to look at the offensive line board. And Austin Sareveld really struggled versus Miami. That was a kind of an exposing game for him. I'm not the biggest Caleb Tiernan fan. I've just never been too high on him. Kind of a weaker class here. Let's look at maybe running back. Jonah Coleman could be in play here. I think that might be what I do if I'm being honest with you. With Trevor Gooseby coming back to Texas, that really thinned out this offensive line class. And let's go with, I'm kind of leaning Blake Miller here if I'm being honest with you. I said I was going to go fast, but then here I am struggling. Let's go Blake Miller, pair him up with Paris Campbell. Let's get a right tackle. Very early, but I think Blake Miller will go a little bit higher than consensus. All right, Titans up here. They took Jordan Tyson. Let's take best overall defensive lineman here. See if we can get after the quarterback a little bit more in 2026. Or Mason Thomas, really good pass rusher. But I'm going to go with Joshua Josephs. Really great pass rusher with a bit more arm length than our Mason Thomas. Mason Thomas might be a bit more refined right now, but I think Joshua Josephs gives you a bit more of that arm length you're looking for in that position. All right, Raiders took Fernando Mendoza here with the first overall pick. I would like to find him maybe some help on that offensive line if I can find really anything here, but it's yeah, it's not looking particularly special in this room right now. Let's look on the defensive side of things here. See who is best available. Christian Miller, I think, would be great. Elijah Surratt would be great as well if you want to find him a weapon that he's familiar with. I like the sound of that. Anthony Hill, they need a linebacker, especially a productive linebacker, somebody that can get downhill, help in run fits, decent in coverage. I like that quite a bit here. If you lose Max Crosby, you're going to need a pass rusher, so our Mason Thomas is in play. I think we're going to take Christian Miller here, though. Really good run stuffer, and I think he has a decent upside to be a solid pass rusher as well. So let's take Christian Miller there. Giants up at pick 37. They took Carnell Tate. Let's look in the secondary here. And yeah, a lot of good talents here. Let's go Brandon Cisse here. Let's go Brandon Cisse. All right, Texans on the clock here. I'm going to go with a running back, I think, here. I'm going to go with, you know what? I might be able to wait, though, for 58 and take a running back. We're kind of risking it here because I think Coleman and Jadarian are the only guys I would take here. So you know what? Let's not mess it up here. Let's just go ahead and get our guy. I think they would like Jonah Coleman a lot. Very physical style. You pair him up with Woody Marks. I think that kind of gives you a 1-2 punch. I know they have a couple of younger guys there, but I think Coleman's just a really sharp talent. So let's go with him. All right, Browns took Mekhi and Caden Proctor. I'm going to double down on offensive line here, and I'm going to go with I think I'm gonna go with Caleb Tiernan. Again, I'm not the highest on him, but he's a big dude, a strong player. I wonder if you can kick him inside to play guard. You have him, you have Caden Proctor and Micaiah Lemon. I think that kind of rebuilds that offense a little bit. Let's go Caleb Tiernan here for the Browns. All right, Chiefs up at 40. We took Peter Woods already. Let's look at receiver here. I like the idea of an Elijah Surratt. Gives him a bit of a different body type. I love the idea of Jadarian Price here as well. If you want to, let's go Jadarian Price. Yeah, that's not overthinking. Let's go Jadarian Price here for the Chiefs. 41, we got the Bengals. They just took Caleb Downs. Let's look at the offensive line board a little bit. I don't hate Connor Lew here. They could definitely use an upgrade in the interior. I think pass rusher opposite of Shamar Stewart checks out. Interior defensive line, Amari Washington. Not the best game versus Texas Tech, I'm being honest with you, but I like the sound of that. Lee Hunter's also really stout as well. Up the middle, let's go with the pass rusher though. I think this team is gonna. I mean, you have Joseph Osai, but they're gonna need somebody if they do keep Joseph Osai. You know what? Actually, though, they do have Shamar Stewart, and let's assume they bring back Joseph Osai. Let's go and take Amari Washington. Quick step off the line of scrimmage, really explosive. Violent player that has an upside to be a really solid pass rusher, but also a really good run stuffer. All right, we took Ruben Bain with the Saints first round pick. Let's look at adding a weapon to this offense. I like Elijah Surratt here. Let's go Elijah Surratt for the Saints. Give Tyler Shock as many weapons as possible. That dude was cooking to end the year. All right, Dolphins took Mansour Delane with their first pick, and with their second pick, I mean, do you not just run in the KC Concepcion pick here? I know he's kind of a similar body type to what they kind of have already, undersized 190 speedster, but I mean, if that's what they're going to run, that's what they're going to run. Let's go with KC Concepcion here. I also would consider Chris Bell if you want a bit more size to him, 6'2", 220, but we're to KC for the Dolphins. All right, Jets have taken Dante Moore, Jeremiah Love, and Caleb Banks. Can't be mad at that one. They need a linebacker with ideally some size to them. And I think that's going to bring me here to Anthony Hill. And Jake Golday also has a lot of good size to him as well. But I'm going to take Anthony Hill. I think he's the best talent on the board here. Solid in coverage. I think he can improve there. But he's a really good run defender. Obviously played a lot of games last year. Only 10 this year, so the numbers are a little bit down. But I thought he was really good for Texas this year. I think he would fit Aaron Glenn's system quite well. All right, Ravens up at 45. They took Francis Maui-Noah with their first pick. I like the idea of maybe taking R. Mason Thomas here to pair him up with Mike Green, let that continue to develop. I also don't hate the idea of taking Mateo, somebody with a decent upside to be a decent pass rusher. I think his upside is great, but also being a really solid run defender as well. Mateo, who, by the way, really good game versus Tech. I thought he was dominant out there. I think that might be, it's between Mason Thomas and Mateo. I'll go with Mateo just because he gives you a bit of a different body type from Mike Green. Let's go with Mateo here. 46, we have the Buccaneers who took Keldrick Falk. I think now I'm going to look at a linebacker here. And look, I think Josiah Trotter is one of the best players in this draft class. Him and Deontay Lawson and Jake Golday, to me, are kind of like in one big group. Trotter and Golday, really good run defenders. I think Trotter's a bit more athletic. And I think he is just, he's somebody that I think is a excellent player. So he may be a little bit raw in coverage, which might hold you back a little bit, but same with Jake Golday, frankly. Deontay Lawson, really good player here as well. Definitely would consider him, but I'm going to go with Josiah Trotter here. Let's do it a little bit differently. All right, Colts have their first pick at 47. Lord knows what you do here. I think you're going to probably have a new quarterback in the building. I don't hate the idea of maybe going with the safety here. I know you just brought Cam Bynum in, but Nick Cross is a free agent. I think you're going to be relying quite heavily on that secondary next year to stay healthy. And I don't think you want to rely on, a George Odom or a Rodney Thomas or something like that. Now, you could bring in a safety. It's a pretty good safety class, and you could just re-sign Nick Cross. So, yeah, maybe not the biggest of need. I don't know, man. This team is just so baffling with what happened to end the year off. Maybe an interior defensive lineman could check out here. Lee Hunter. I like that. I like Lee Hunter quite a bit right here. Other than that, I mean, it's really just quarterback. That offense is loaded with talent. You just got to find the right quarterback. Maybe it's Kyler, maybe it's Malik, maybe it's somehow Daniel Jones returns early. We'll see. Let's go with Lee Hunter here. Gives him a big body up the middle that I think has a decent upside to be a solid pass rusher. Let's go Lee Hunter. Really good year for Tech, by the way. All right, 48, we got the Falcons. I like receiver here, and I like Jeremy Bernard for this team specifically. Just a reliable underneath target that would pair well with Drake London. I think he's a hit. Chris Bell is a really good talent, but he's coming off an ACL injury that I think could give a lot of teams some concern. And I think I don't know. I think him and Drake London, there's some redundancy there. Jeremy Bernard, a bit of a different player. So let's go Jeremy Bernard for the Falcons. 49, we have the Vikings. They took Jermod McCoy. I think interior defensive line is definitely in play here. Admittedly speaking, not sure there's a player that I'm really in love with here at this spot. Let's go running back maybe. Nope. Nope. Maybe I like LJ Martin a decent bit. I like Emmett Johnson, but maybe more like round 3. Man, let's look at safety maybe. You have Harrison Smith, but you got to imagine at some point he's going to end up retiring. Joshua Metellus injured. You have Jay Ward. I like the idea of taking a safety here. You just took, again, Jermon McCoy to maybe play on the outside. Pair him up with Isaiah Rodgers, Byron Murphy. We'll see who plays in the nickel in that role. Probably Murphy. Let's go with safety here, though. I like AJ Halsey quite a bit. Play him a little bit more deep. I think they could definitely use that. Dylan Thieneman, a really smart player. Kamara Ramsey gives them that versatility that Flores would like to look for. If they retain Flores, I think they would actually lean towards a Ramsey because, again, he can play in the slot. He can play deep. He can play in the box. I like that quite a bit. But I think AJ Halsey just might be the best talent available. I think they might need somebody that plays specifically more deep. So we'll take Halsey, but I like the idea of Kamara Ramsey here as well. All right, 50, we got the Detroit Lions. They took Spencer Fano. I'm going to look at something here off the edge or corner, actually. Let's look at corner because they have so many injuries there. They could just use somebody that never gets hurt. And if you want somebody that doesn't get hurt, Keith Abney doesn't get hurt. Chris Johnson doesn't get hurt. Keontae Scott doesn't get hurt very often. Keith Abney, I feel like, is a bit more of their type. But Chris Johnson, I think, is an absolute dog. I think he's a complete monster in the secondary. Had a fantastic year for San Diego State. Let's go with Keith Abney. I think that people will have him higher on the board because of the tape he put on. Not a special athlete, but I think a good enough athlete to get the job done. All right, Carolina took Cassius Howell with their first pick. Let's look at linebacker here because there's still a ton of really good prospects. Jake Golday is exceptional against the run. Needs some work in coverage, but exceptional against the run. Deontay Lawson, a ton of experience for obviously a great program at Alabama. Really good run defender, really solid athlete, decent enough in coverage. Let's go with Deontay Lawson. I think he is the higher end talent than Jake Golday, although I think Jake Golday is a star in the making. 52, we got the Packers. This is their first pick. They're going to get Micah Parsons back. Let's see what happens with that offensive line. They have a ton of pieces to work with there, so I'm not too worried about it. Interior defensive line is interesting, but not a ton of great pieces here. I think you could probably wait till round 4 or 3 to take like a Dominique or a Dante or a Daryl Jackson, so we'll pass on that. Let's look in the secondary here. Obviously, you brought in Trayvon Diggs, and I'll tell you this as a Cowboys fan. We'll wait and see on that one. I don't think it's going to work out, but maybe he can end up being a good fit there, turn his career around. Obviously, I'm rooting for him. But you have Keyshawn Nixon, you have Carrington Valentine, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, David McKinney, obviously great safety duo. I think Keontae Scott, he's more of a slot guy, and I know you have Javon Bullard, who is still pretty young and promising, but let's go with the outside corner here, though. Let's just get a little bit more talented. Let's go Chris Johnson here. Yeah, I think Chris Johnson, by the way, is like my CB4 in this class. I think he's an absolute just monster in coverage, and he may not be the most athletic freak. He might be a little bit wiry, but man, he is sticky as hell in zone. He might be even better in man coverage, so we'll go with that there. All right, 53, we just took Denzel Boston for Pittsburgh. I wonder, is this like a Trinidad Chambliss spot? I feel like it could be, although I feel like he might be better suited for like round 3. Let's look in the corner room here. Again, we just talked about Keontae Scott. That Pittsburgh secondary, Ramsey, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. I feel like Ramsey really didn't play great this year. I don't want to put the blame on him, but like, I feel like I see at the back of his jersey quite a bit. I don't know if that's him out of position or somebody else out of position. I think corner is a bit of a need here, and I feel like and I know that they like Ramsey in the slot, and I can kind of see why, and you already have Brandon Echols too. I know that teams like Julian Neal quite a bit. I like Neal. That's daily never. I like Neal. Very lengthy, 6'2", 208. A lot of good tape on him. That Arkansas defense was abysmal, though, and I don't know how much you put on him, how much you put on that secondary. Let's go Julian Neal. I think that NFL teams will like Julian Neal a lot more than what fans do. All right, we have the Eagles. They took Avion Terrell. Let's get a pass rusher here. R. Mason Thomas fell a little bit far here. Let's take R. Mason Thomas. Not ideal size and length, but really good pass rusher. 55, we got the Chargers. They took Ovega Ione. Let's look at adding to that defensive line here. Give them some more juice off the edge. I think that would be great for them. Do you just go with Akeem Mesidor? I mean, having such a spectacular year, but he's going to be freaking 25 years old when he gets drafted. So by the time his first contract's up, he's going to be almost 30. I feel like that has to bring him down quite a bit. I still feel like the way he's ended the year off has been special. Gabe Yakis, really excellent player. I feel like he also is kind of a fit for what this team looks for off the edge. Zion Young had a great year for Missouri. I think I'm gonna go. Let's go Gabe Yakis. Let's go Gabe. All right, Buffalo took CJ Allen off of Georgia with their first round pick. That helps them out a lot more on that side. Let's look at adding something in the edge room here. LT Overton, I think, checks out with what they could use in terms of a really good run stuffer, as well as somebody that has a little bit of some juice as a pass rusher. I think Zion Young kind of fits that mold a little bit too. Maybe has a bit more of an upside to him and has a bit more versatility. Let's go Zion Young. Yeah, let's go Zion Young. Got those two guys off the board here. All right, they took Caden McDonald with their first pick. I like the idea. Maybe looking at safety. They have some older guys. They have some guys that are free agents. So let's go with Dylan Thieneman. Really smart player that I think Ben Johnson would like. Texans up. They took Pregnon and Coleman. Maybe we look at interior defensive line here. Not like their biggest of need, but if I could find a pass rusher, I feel like though you can wait for Skylar Gill-Howard for like round 4. So let's. I'm kind of feeling like doubling down on offensive line here and going with Connor Lew. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go Connor Lew. I like that draft a lot for Houston. Houston got a lot of things done there. Pregnon, Coleman, and Connor. Like that for them. All right, San Francisco's up. They took Romello Height. Let's go Chris Bell. I know that it's one of those things where it's like, do you really take a guy that just tore his ACL on a team that is just destroyed every year by injuries? Yeah, I get it. It's probably dumb, but Chris Bell is an awesome talent at receiver. You need some help in that receiving core because Jawan Jennings might be gone. Brandon Ayuk is obviously gone. Pearsall can't stay healthy. Hopefully this is just a one-time injury. He'll be fine. All right, 60 with the Jaguars. I like Kamari Ramsey here. I think he would make some sense. The interior defensive line class. Could go Dante Corleone. Really good run stuffer. Didn't have a great year pass rushing, though. I would like to see him do a little bit better. Maybe we look at the interior of the offensive line a little bit here. Jake Slaughter, Austin Sierreveld, kick him inside to play guard. That Jaguars team really turned it around. I haven't really gotten a chance to go through what their exact needs are. I feel like they're the one team that every single year I'm a little bit behind on. But Patrick McCarr is a bit older. You have Ezra Cleveland. I feel like that interior is not bad at all. You have plenty of weapons on that offense. They're probably going to bring back Travis Etienne. I would at least. He had a great year. Man, they're just a really well-rounded team. I'm not really seeing a ton of needs for this guy. I might just go Jake Slaughter because you have Robert Hainsey, who has been fine this year for the Jaguars. He's 27, 54.8 pass block grade. Let's go Jake Slaughter here. Let's give him a center. All right, 61, we got the Rams. They took Ty Simpson, Colton Hood. They just re-signed one of their safeties. I think one of their other safeties is a free agent, though. So we'll keep tabs on that one. I like the idea of maybe adding a receiver here because Devontae Adams is dealing with some injuries, only has one more year left on his deal. Puka Nacua is incredible, but you're going to need somebody else. Chris Brazzell gives him some speed and a bit of size to him, a bit of a deep threat. I think he would open up a lot more for that offense. Let's go with Chris Brazzell here. All right, 62, we got the Patriots. They took Caleb Lomu. Let's look at adding something off the edge. I think Akeem Mesidor would be their type of guy. His issue is that he's just old, man. But I feel like the Patriots, with their kind of window being open, let's take Akeem Mesidor here. Really good pass rusher, having an incredible year as a run defender as well. Just that Miami team, man, physical, nasty. Their identity would fit what Mike Vrabel likes. All right, Denver took Kenyon Sadiq with their first pick. Let's look at adding a linebacker. Oh, Jake Golday. Yeah, I like Jake Golday. Great size, good length to him, really good run defender. Needs to improve in coverage, but I think in Denver he'd get there for sure. And lastly, with the Seattle Seahawks, they took Jennings Dunker. I'm going to add a cornerback here. Man, Keontae Scott is definitely their type. The issue is, though, is that if you do this, you're going to kick Devon Witherspoon primarily to the outside. But at the same time, you know, move these guys around, let them play multiple positions. Let's go Keontae Scott. Gives them some versatility off that defense. And he just kind of fits their dog mentality. All right, so this is the first round of this mock draft. And really quickly, we'll just skim over the second round here. Let you guys take a peek. Maybe your favorite team is on here. You can pause and look at it. I'll scroll up for you guys. And that is the first round right here. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Awesome regular season this year. We'll do a recap at some point. Now we get towards the playoffs, so we'll do an updated mock draft sometime during the playoffs, then after the playoffs. Hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.